Greetings on this Wednesday hump day and welcome to 2021. We are back with another marketing spotlight here with Digital Summit. I'm Kip Edwardson and I'm here joined with Sarah Weise, CEO of Bixa, who's been a speaker with us in the past. Welcome, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's get a quick intro of Sarah for those of you who aren't familiar with Sarah. She's an American author, businesswoman, and professional speaker. Entrepreneur, started her own business, one of the successful female CEOs, one of her own marketing company, specializing in market research that she founded. Sarah's guided hundreds of brands, including Google, Capital One, IBM, Mikimoto, PBS, and Real Warriors. Easy for me to say. As a best-selling author, her book InstaBrain, The New Rules for Marketing to Generation Z, and we'll get into that a little bit. She's a business owner, mother of two. Sarah has become known for her motivational, high-energy style and her unique ability to empower and embolden any audience. What a challenge. She's the CEO of Bixa, as I mentioned, an award-winning market research, UX research studio that guides companies to capture attention, boost sales, and transform your business. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again for having me. I always feel like that's a little awkward. You're sitting there like listening to your bio.
Yeah. You're like, that's me. Keep going.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit more about your role in Bixa.
Yeah, so what we do at Bixa is all market research and UX research. We do everything from qualitative to quantitative studies. So we're doing everything from right now, almost everything is virtual. So we're doing, in-depth interviews. We're doing large-scale surveys. We're doing a lot of video research, which is super cool. I love video diary studies, mobile diary studies. We did this one recently where we were working with a coffee company, and they said, we want to know how people make coffee in their home. So for 4 straight days, we had them whip out their phone, and just do a selfie video of themselves brewing coffee. And we found that from doing this kind of in-home ethnography on their cell phones, we found that like a certain percentage, like a relatively large percentage they didn't know about, actually brewed coffee in their bathrooms.
Get out of here.
Yeah, they did. And they were like, oh my gosh. I mean, it was a large coffee company. And they're like, oh my gosh, we have done interviews. We've done surveys, we've done focus groups. We have never heard this before. And yet all these people are on their phones, in their homes, brewing coffee in their bathrooms. And it was this very specific segment of the population. Yeah. This is like, you have to know your audience segments, right? And it was this very specific segment. And they were typically moms who had small children. And they were like, oh my gosh, I just need 5 minutes to myself in the morning. Like if I go to the kitchen, it's all over. My day has started. I've got, somebody wanting breakfast, somebody screaming at me, somebody doesn't have pants, like whatever it is. I just need 5 minutes to myself to drink my coffee in peace. But they were embarrassed about it. They were embarrassed about it.
No, that's the creative brief. That's the creative brief right there. You need a moment to yourself, brew the coffee in the bathroom.
No, right? But it's not. That's the thing, right? If you'd said brewed the coffee in the bathroom, they would have been embarrassed and not bought the product. Well, but if you had said, oh, hotel experience at home, they would have been like, oh.
And see, that's where my brain went. When you said that at first, I was like, no way. Then I'm like, you know what? I've stayed in many a hotel where the coffee is, because that's where the water source is. Mm-hmm. It's right there.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
But it just seems so odd because you don't think about it, but it was actually quite a large segment of the population. We were, it was a specific set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked for a brand, and full disclosure, I won't say who it is, but one of the craziest, you find some weird things when you start doing ethnography. And we found that people were reusing their mouse traps by putting them in their dishwasher. Not kidding. So,
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that story.
That's awesome. You guys are doing great work, and you've done some research on Gen Z. You wrote a book that's been a big part of your speaking engagements. And
the past few years have been really, a lot of the research we've done has been about Gen Z, and it started a couple of years ago where Google came to us and they were like, "Hey, kids aren't searching anymore. Go find out what they're doing on their phones if they're not searching." And so we started doing ethnography, and we were doing surveys. We did, oh my gosh, we've done so much research, qualitative and quantitative research. And in one study alone, Kip, we found that we ended up with like 30,000 pieces of data, like just so much data. And we ended up, because we couldn't, like, they were doing things so differently than previous generations, we ended up printing out all of those little bits of data on sticky notes and putting on the wall and manually sorting 30,000 sticky notes. And I don't know if you've ever like seen a room with 30,000 sticky notes, but that's a hell of a lot of yellow.
Yeah. I wouldn't count them. I was it was in a scrum room where they were using sticky notes as their board and it was like their Kanban. And
it took a week to go through all 30,000 and like put them on the wall and manually organize them. But once we were done, we were like, oh my gosh, we see the patterns now. Like it was very apparent. And so after that project, we did projects with many other companies on Gen Z. And then I ended up publishing the book. Here, I've got it over here. Ended up publishing InstaBrain to like actually just kind of go through a bunch of the tools and trends that we were seeing, because that means just things were so different. Yeah. And so in the book, you'll see like real stories and even transcripts from some of the research participants where I couldn't even do it justice. So I had to just print some of the transcripts and some of the quotes that they said. And you're like, whoa, I mean, some of the things were so mind blowing to me as, you know, somebody in their late 30s. I would not have guessed that they would have done things like this, but it's very exciting.
It's interesting you point out the age, because when we heard so much about Gen Z, the millennials, and people forget, like, you know, they're like adults with children now. Like people refer to
millennials are, yeah. But yeah, Gen Z is 13 to 25 now. But yeah, some of the older Gen Zs, sure, they're certainly. I wouldn't call them kids. The older group. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, they are aging. I mean, my daughter's in that age. She's in college. So, one of the questions I wanted to ask about generational marketing, and we touched on this before we started the video, is, you know, we're dealing with COVID and what a disruption, and people learning. You know, the school's been disrupted. Kids are having to learn from home, and how do you see that as a big defining moment? Which generation do you think it's going to impact the most?
It's going to impact Gen Alpha the most. So that's the generation that is a little bit younger than Generation Z. So it's ages like 12 and under. I don't know if it's 12 and to newborn. I don't know where it cuts off, but that Generation Alpha is definitely going to be impacted the most. That generation was set up to be the wealthiest and most educated and honestly the most entitled generation we've seen today. And then COVID hit and they can't go out of their houses. They can't go to school. They're seeing their parents like lose jobs and take pay cuts and budget in ways that they've never seen before. And it was a huge shock, I think, to a lot of young children around the world. And it's definitely impacting the way they view communication, the way they view learning, the way they view the relationship with their parents, the way that they view money and budgeting and their financial savvy is going to be a little bit different because of this. So I think it's definitely impacting the way they buy. I mean, they're watching their parents now basically not go to any retail stores. So, I mean, where they might have before.
You know, and even you saw a lot of the videos that people were posting at Christmas time, and grandparents are, you know, on a Zoom call watching the grandkids open the presents, and it suddenly got to a point where that was normal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. And speaking of like the shopping, like how do you see that's going to start? What are you starting to see in the trends and things you're researching?
What was interesting was that before COVID, we were seeing a surge in in-store shopping again with Generation Z. They wanted to go in-store again. And then this hit and suddenly you couldn't. And so now we're seeing people are going back to stores, but they're going back less frequently. And when they're there, their basket sizes are larger. So they're spending more per purchase in a retail store. They're like stocking up. And this
paper.
And I mean, we were doing some research with a big thrift store chain and found this to be true. And then I talked to somebody from the National Retailers Association, and she was saying that it was true across the board, where they were seeing the same, very similar trends in all different industries.
Yeah. Are you seeing any things that are picking up on that? Like, are some of the apps that are maybe helping with shopping lists and stuff, are those becoming more popular? Is it, or are the stores, are the trips more deliberate, or is it just, hey, I'm going to walk in the store and wander around and with my mask on?
I think it is. I think it is deliberate for sure.
Yeah,
I think people are going to bigger stores. They're selecting bigger stores over smaller stores because of the airflow, and they're concerned about that situation. But also, you know, one thing that was really interesting to me, we recently did, like I said, we were working with this thrift store, and then they started, it was a thrift superstore. So they're a huge thrift store, like Walmart size with thrift store items in it. And in this store, they started doing a campaign, a geo-based campaign. So when their customers were in, or a customer like the one they wanted to target was in a competitor store, they would, if they had their location services turned on, they'd send a campaign to their phone. So like whatever app they were on, if they were on their phone, they saw maybe a banner ad that said something like, oh, this other store there, it's a mile away and they have a 50% off sale today. And they saw a ton of like much higher conversions than they had expected. And that I think would have much higher conversions than they would have had before COVID with a campaign like that. And I think it's because people are cooped up and so they want to get out and they want to go to large stores to do it. That's
great. So using geofencing and just using the Latin longitude of where they are within the proximity. Yeah, that's smart. That's really good. Let's get back to like thinking about Zoom though, or any of the research you're seeing and we've kind of seen it with our own virtual events. Are people getting zoomed out?
Yeah.
Is Zoom fatigue
They're
real?
zoomed out and they're like tired of talking about their feelings too. They're also empathied out, I think, which, I mean, we've seen an uptick even in like because we do a lot of Zoom interviews and qualitative research. We've definitely seen a big uptick in the no-show rates of participants. And we just have to account for that and know that we have to over recruit a little bit more than normally. But I think a lot of it is, and even like up the incentives sometimes, but I think a lot of it is this Zoom fatigue. It's a real phenomenon. People are just exhausted with Zoom. And I almost wonder when it is safe to go back to live events, if you're going to have this huge surge of people who are like, oh my God, I want to network again. I want to be there in person.
Yeah.
Good for Digital Summit.
Yeah. And in the spirit of market research, you know, we started to see headwinds in promoting our virtual events last year for those very reasons. And we did our own research asking marketers how they felt about it. And I think the idea of virtual events was like, you know, I'm just going to wait. I think we're close to a vaccine.
Yeah.
We're hearing companies we're putting the kibosh on travel and events for the next year, at least through first quarter into that half of the year. So we kind of planned our schedule around that, and our schedule is out. You can see it. And, you know, we're planning June for that first event and be back in person, and
yay,
cross our fingers. Yeah. Let's cross the fingers. Let's hope we're back.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's pent up demand for it. I think people really are looking to do that because we're social creatures by nature, and you can't.
Yeah. It's just human behavior, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very, very hard to replicate, especially when a lot of companies are trying to do very similar live events.
Yeah. And what are
similar virtual events? Yeah.
Right. And what other trends are you seeing that with fatigue and being like empathied out? Is humor becoming a bigger deal? And is
for sure.
It's always been a big deal in advertising, but what are some of the trends that are really taking off with that?
Yeah, I definitely think humor is much bigger now. I think people can joke about COVID a little bit more than they could even in the earlier days. And even the Christmas cards this year, I got so many creative Christmas cards. Like there's so many ones that I don't feel like I could have gotten a Christmas card of somebody screaming baby and a note like, well, at least we tried, or like, oh, let's just roll with it. We just rolled with it. I got one that said we just rolled with it, and it had a family where they had like nice Zoom shirts on and then like pajamas on the bottom. And I felt like I wouldn't have seen that a year ago. Any sort of humor, I would have just gotten the classic, you know, family photo type of Christmas cards.
Right. We had Ann Hanley as a guest speaker a couple.
I love her. I know her well.
Yeah, and she referred to it as the Zoom mullet when your business appearing.
Totally. Totally.
You know, wearing Crocs, no pants, whatever.
Yeah. My husband defended his PhD a few months ago, and he did it over Zoom, and he totally had the full suit up top and then like board shorts on the bottom.
Love it.
I've got these pictures of him. I was like, I can't believe he's defending his PhD in board shorts, but that's the way it was.
Hey, you know what? It probably helped him relax.
Probably.
It's a good thing, right? Hey, so there's a silver lining. I love it. One of the other things we discussed about was B2B, and we have a themed summits this year. So we've got a B2B summit coming up in May that we're really excited about. And one of the things we talked about is some of the trends you're seeing around lead gen and things that are changing with B2B. Talk about that a little bit, particularly like LinkedIn and some of the issues with cookies that we're facing. And there's a whole bunch of topics I think are in there. Like, what are you guys seeing?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know specifically. No? I mean, I guess that might not have been my list. That's somebody else's list. Okay. But I can certainly talk about B2B. We're definitely seeing people. You know what has been really interesting? I think people in B2B are more online. Like, we've found it easier to recruit B2B participants over the past 6 months. I mean, we're getting really good recruit rates for B2B participants right now when we're doing studies. For example, we had to find CFOs of medical malpractice companies, you know, all like 400 of them in the United States or something. You know, you get a random sample of that. And I thought that was going to be impossible to find. And we found a lot of them willing to hop on a 30-minute call to tell us about a product, like very, very quickly, like within a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how much of that B2B industry is reliant on their old school sales channel, and suddenly the sales team can't go do individual sales calls. Some still relying on print catalogs and things, and it's suddenly like, ooh, maybe we should have thought about this digital stuff a while ago. And, you know, that was a big deal.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to a company called Edco, and they're a manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. And I was literally just on the phone with them a couple hours ago, and they were talking about how they're doing a digital trade show to showcase their manufacturing products. And they were like, yeah, we're going to do it all on YouTube. And it's going to be a 2-day event where we can show off like all of our products that we will sell to rental stores, so that they can rent them out to contractors and stuff like that. So it was just a really interesting way. And he was trying to think of really unique ways to showcase the products, because you can't touch and feel and see the products on a virtual show.
I mean, look at CES right now. Who had a virtual? If you've ever been to CES, I can't even think. I mean, some of those booths they're football field size.
Phenomenal, right?
Over things and you want to see the 8K.
But it didn't stop. It didn't stop GM yesterday from launching that awesome electric van or anything like that.
Right? Yeah. So people are finding ways to do it, and I think it's gonna be interesting to watch which one of those trends stick after we get through all this. Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating. What other things you guys have cooking? What's exciting you want to talk about?
You know what's really kind of cool, because all these people are online. A lot of people have been asking me recently, like, what can I do? What research can I do quickly to understand my audience and know what kind of content to produce for them? Because now content marketing is huge. We're like consuming more and more content on our devices now because we're not out doing stuff. And so I can certainly go through a few things I have been telling people over the past couple of days. I mean, I've gotten this question so many times over the past month. So the first thing you can absolutely do, like first tip I have off the top of my head that you can do to figure out what kind of content your audience is going to want, is to go to whatever Facebook group they are on and look through the comments. Like, it's such an easy way to do that. And instead of just reading all the comments, which would take you forever, go to that search bar at the top and type in recommendations or looking for or help or words like that, because it'll help you understand what people are struggling with, what pain points they have, what challenges they have that they might need some sort of content in, that they might need help with. The second really great way that is totally free and quick for you to figure out topics that might be good for your audience is to go to the best books in your industry. Like go to Amazon and find the best books in your industry and like literally just look at the table of contents, which you don't even have to buy the book to do it. On Amazon, it's usually like you go there and you look at a table of contents, you will find amazing topics that are aligned with your whatever you're talking about by doing that. And it's because those authors, they've spent a lot of time thinking about all the different topics that they want to talk about in their book. And so if you just scan the table of contents, you're going to get so many content ideas. And then the third thing that I tell people is just a no-brainer is to call your customers and ask them about what they need and want right now. I mean, it's so easy to do. And instead of saying like, oh, what content would you like? I would phrase it a little bit differently. I would phrase it as, what videos or blog posts were the best ones you've seen over the past couple of months? Like what content really resonated with you? What past content? And then they'll start talking about an article and why it hit home or something like that. And you'll start to understand what types of content they like. So that past behavior is really a good indicator of what they're going to like in the future. So those are like some just really quick, free ways to do market research and understand what kind of content to create for your customers. And you can do that today.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's great stuff. And, a lot of times those will lead, I always believe in like ideas, like beget ideas, right?
Yes,
so totally. Things to say, oh, we should do a little bit more research into that.
And I always feel like if you get people tagging other people in the comments, then you're onto something, because it means it's worth sharing.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you mentioned, I believe you got some free research that's available.
Sure. Yeah. So you can get a free copy of InstaBrain, the new rules for marketing to Generation Z. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out where the camera is. So you can certainly get a free chapter of that. And I also have a PDF that I'll send you to on, oh, look, you're so efficient. You typed it already. Yeah. I'll also send you a PDF on the best market research techniques for understanding your Gen Z audience, which is a little bit different than market research techniques for maybe some older generations. So text hi, the word hi, to 66866. If you're at a computer, you can go to bixaresearch.com/free chapter, BIXA research.com/free chapter.
That's fantastic. Great stuff. Really enjoyed the conversation. We usually try to keep these to about 25 minutes. We're around 23.
Awesome.
So anything that we didn't cover that you want to mention, that I'll let you take us home.
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. There's so many things. That I want to mention. Actually, I heard something really interesting yesterday, and it's totally a random thought, but since you're all marketers here and you're watching this, I'm going to share it with you. I was watching a video with Seth Godin on it, and he said something really fascinating. He says fascinating things all the time, but this one really stuck with me. He said, if Nike made a hotel, we would all kind of like understand what it would look like. Like you have a picture in your mind of if they made a hotel, but if Hyatt made a shoe, we would have no idea what it looked like. And it's because Nike has a brand, and a Hyatt, a Hilton, a Marriott really don't. In terms of, if you swapped the signs on the hotels and you walked into the lobby, like you may not know that it's not a Hyatt versus Hilton versus a Marriott. Like it's not a differentiated brand. Yeah. And so I have been thinking about that for, a day since I heard that. And I've just been like noodling on that and wanted to share it with you.
Yeah, and that's a good one. He shared that he keynoted, several of our Digital Summit at Home virtual events, and he shared that. And I made the comment when he was talking about that. I said, if Hilton made a shoe, it would be hot, HAWT. But that's you get it. All right, you get it. All right,
I got it.
Bad joke, but a few people got it. But, yeah, no, that's a great story. Seth always has really good nuggets like that. You know what I found was really interesting. Somebody asked him about kind of writing his books. And he goes, I don't write books. He goes, I write. And he goes, so I regularly blog, right? And someone who has a kind of a writing background, everyone knows, like, to be good at writing, you have to keep writing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just write. That's why I blog. Thoughts come to me and I write them, and then I assemble them and they become a book.
Huh.
But that's pretty cool.
That is cool. Yeah.
People like you, and I'm going to put
It's
you
totally different from my writing style, because I felt like I had all this like info in my head, and it took 3 weeks to write the book, because it was 2 weeks to write and 1 week to edit and publish. So because it was all there. Yeah.
A different way to come at writing, right? But what I find in meeting all these interesting people and the speakers, the great speakers we have at Digital Summit, is that brain is constantly working. It's constantly working with guys like Seth and I'm not kidding. And some people just have that gift, and it's amazing. It's amazing. So, hey, I appreciate having you on. This was fantastic. And you're going to be speaking at, I believe, one of our upcoming summits, right?
I think 4 of your upcoming summits.
You're gonna get to know us pretty well. It's gonna be great.
I have been speaking at Digital Summit since it was Digital East. So that was like 7 years. It's been a while.
You were like 22 when you started?
You're funny.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Fantastic. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Bye.
Peace.